Good day, everyone, and welcome to this Data at Your Desk workshop series. Today's topic is SPSS, the Statistical Package for Social Sciences. I'm going to give a little introduction to me and to SPSS, and also what we're going to do today, and then we will jump in, and I will alternate between providing a little instruction and background on SPSS and how it works, and then actually showing you how to initiate a project in SPSS. So first, I am your facilitator for this workshop. I am Myla Turner. I am the social science data and research librarian here. And I have a lot of experience in the social sciences with data and with research, hence the title. So I'm a sociologist, more specifically an environmental sociologist. And when I got my start doing research, long time ago, I actually started working with SPSS, and so this has been over 15 years now as an SPSS user. And so I'll talk a little bit about what that is like, or what it has been like, and all of the changes over the years. Now, what is SPSS? So SPSS, I mentioned the full title. Sometimes you'll see it called IBM SPSS because IBM owns it now, but it is the statistical package for the social sciences. And for the social sciences, primarily social scientists use it, but of course, it's not just for social scientists. So, anyone in any field, it's really applicable to many different fields. And so today I'm going to introduce you to SPSS, the software, and we'll talk about some beginning data analysis skills, how to use and find and create data files, how to modify your data, clean up your data a little bit, and doing some preliminary statistical analysis, just learning the basic statistical commands. And then once you see how SPSS works and how to operate it generally, you'll be able to, go from there and complete the analysis that you are most interested in. All right, so let's jump in. First, I want to talk a little bit about why we're here, or why you may be here, and how you can use SPSS and how it can be beneficial to you. So we know that SPSS is for data analysis or statistics, and this is really valuable to a wide range of professions, not just those of us in the social sciences. So, when you learn how to understand your data and manage it and analyze it, for many careers, that's a fundamental skill. Everything from social science, of course, to business, to healthcare. It will be great for many of us in these worlds to learn how to analyze data. So for those of you in business, you can think about market research or consumer research. How do businesses make decisions? When you think about, or if you ever heard the term data-driven, so data-driven decision making, learning SPSS can be advantageous to those in business because it helps with market research or marketing, or even those business analytics. And then even a field like health or government, you can think about analyzing data related to social issues, public health, demographics. We could, import census data into SPSS and explore and analyze that. So, we've got a lot of options. And there are lots of statistical packages that we could be using, but today we've decided to use SPSS. And I like SPSS because I feel like it is very user-friendly and very beginner-friendly, but also it's a very powerful tool. So it's complete. It's a complete package that you can do, data entry, data analysis, data visualizations. It may not be my top choice for data visualizations, but it can be done. You can create those graphics in there. Like I said, it's easy to use. There are ways that you can just, use drop-down menus, point, click, tell it what you want it to do, And then, once you understand a little bit about how it works, it becomes even more intuitive. There's also command syntax that you could use. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I'm going to show you the most direct way to get you started today. And that's really going to be with the point and click aspects. And then lots and lots and lots of tools. You'll see once we get into the menus that are in the program that, you can do everything from your basic descriptive statistics to more advanced analyses, multiple regressions, all of that. And another great thing is if you're already using some sort of software or statistical package, SPSS plays nicely with others. You're going to see how we can export data directly from Qualtrics if you developed a survey or a tool in Qualtrics and export data specific to SPSS. But if you're already using something else, maybe you've got your data in Excel or some other file, SPSS plays pretty nicely with others, and then you can open file formats. A little bit more preaching on the wonders of SPSS. One of the things that I didn't mention, like I said, I've used SPSS for a very long time. Every so often, a new version will come out. The great thing about SPSS, so one of the great things, is that it's backward and forward compatible depending on which version you're using or which version you've had access to. And if you haven't used it in a while, maybe you were using version 20 and now you want to use version 27. No problem, we can do that. And you'll see some of the things that it can do today. I don't think we'll get too much into visualizations, but maybe some very basic graphs and charts, or at least I'll show you how to find those. And then thinking about how you manage your data. I mentioned cleaning data, but what if you've got to, do other manipulations to your data? We can do that in SPSS. And then, I keep saying data. I didn't really talk much about what data is. I'll get more into the types of data that the software recognizes, but it's best for quantitative data analysis. Not saying you couldn't do some qualitative things, but this is really not what it's intended for. It is intended for quantitative data analysis, and you can do cross-sectional, time series, longitudinal, working with categorical data. I think the most common use case is with survey data, so I lean toward talking more about that. And so you'll hear me talk a lot about going from survey to SPSS and how to analyze your data. So I hope you are convinced now about some of the great things about why you would want to use SPSS and why you want to develop these skills, because these are really the type of things that could be useful to you as researchers, but also makes you a more attractive candidate to potential employers if you're thinking about the future. Okay, all of these other why use SPSS, I pretty much covered them all. One more that I would say is that I told you SPSS plays nicely with others. That also extends to many extensions. So there are free libraries of SPSS syntax that you can use if you're already familiar with R, or you've already got syntax written in R or Python or something like that. So they have really developed something that plays nicely with other software, and I can really appreciate that. So the next question might be, now that I've convinced you, how do you access SPSS? I'm going to, I guess I can go ahead and put this link in the chat, and we'll actually go to SPSS a little bit later. Maybe I can't put this link in the chat. I will put this link in the chat later so we can get to it. But we're going to access SPSS through the MyFSU Lab. And what that means is, just like this graphic says, you can access it anywhere at any time, even if you change computers, even if you're using a computer lab, computer or you change locations, even if you're not on campus, you can still access SPSS. So I think it's a nifty little way to do it. It can be a little clunky sometimes, but that's okay. I'll show you how to work around. I'm going to save you some of the headaches that I've had and show you how to shortcut to get to where you need to go. And so instead of using the desktop version, I'm going to use the My FSU VLab version because I would encourage you to use that so you can access access the software from anywhere. So that's the plan for today. Now, so if you're not familiar with the VLab, basically, if you could imagine that we've got this software housed on a computer on campus. It's like us logging in to the campus computer with SPSS, no matter where we are. So we can we can log in and we can access it just like we were on campus without being on campus. So that's a really cool thing. And then you'll see in the interface, it's a little different. It's like controlling another computer, but it will serve our purposes just fine. So that is how we will access it. Before we get to that point, I'm going to talk more about what we're looking for, what we can expect to find in SPSS, and how we will kick things off. And don't worry, I promise you I will leave some time for questions. Maybe I shouldn't make that promise because I talk a lot, but I will, you can put questions in the chat. You can stop me and ask questions, but I will try really hard. I take my promise back. I will try really hard to leave time at the end for questions. So we should have time. Okay, so if you are using SPSS, the desktop version or the VLab version, typically if you're to use it for the first time, you open up the program and you get this opening dialog that basically asks you, which file are we working with today? And so you can choose to open, your file data that you have on your device, or maybe you have exported from another program. You could they also have some sample files. The sample files are great if you just want to play around and explore. So that's what you see on the right side here. So the left side is if you want to, what specific file you want to open, just go and open that file. On the right side, you see some of the sample files, great to play around. So if you, instead of looking at recent files, if you click on sample files, this menu will come up. And then, you can see what the data is structured like. I'm going to show you some different sample files today. There is in the sample file, there's one called survey sample that comes from the General Social Survey. You'll hear me refer to it as GSS. So General Social Survey. I have downloaded a more recent version so we can look at some 2018 data. It's the most recent version of the data that they have. So that's what the startup looks like. Once you choose the file that you want to work with, you'll see a new window pop up. And when you're working in SPSS, you will eventually, if you run any type of data analysis, you'll eventually have these 3 SPSS windows open. And I want to talk about the difference between them really quickly because this matters to how you save that data file and what you're working with. And so this in the corner, this is just like a little snapshot of what you might see of the 3 screens. I'm sorry, the 3 windows. And you see look in the corner, one's got a bluish icon, one has an orangish icon, and one has a red icon. And they kind of tell you what it is. Like the blue one says output, the orange one says syntax, the red one, in the brackets, it says data. So that kind of tells you, it gives you the clues to what they are. So when you are opening data or you save a new file, SPSS has its own file types, and that's what the file extensions are. So .sav, that is it's called the data editor window, but that's where we're going to spend most of our time. That's where we can see our data and the metadata So the data about our data in this window. And so it looks a lot like a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you on the next slide. So it looks like spreadsheets that you have already seen. And then it's where you can see the variables listed in columns and in rows to work with. So we're using survey data, like each respondent would be a row, and then the different variables, each of those would be columns. So most of what we are going to be working with will be in the data editor window. So pay attention to those file names, .sav. Okay. When we run any type of analysis, a new window will pop up, and that is the output. Okay, that makes sense. Output. All right, it's the output of whatever statistic or analysis we have run. And so the output window, that's the blue one, with the blue icon. It's always going to be in a separate window. It should pop up in front of whatever it is that you're doing. And what you, I will show you this, but what you're going to see on here is exactly what it sounds like, the output. It's going to show you what you've run. Now, if you don't want to use the point click drop down drop down menu method of running statistics and performing actions in SPSS, you can use the syntax editor window, which is the orange icon. Okay, and so if you write your commands, like if you want to, let's say, get the mean of a particular variable, and you write the syntax command to do that, you will write that in the syntax editor window. And when you run that command, it will pop up, the output window will pop up. But if you want to use syntax and pay attention or keep up with all of the commands that you're giving SPSS to do, then you'll be looking for this syntax editor window, the .sps file, and be sure that you are saving that. Okay, so we want to save, well, let me pause before I say that. You definitely want to save what you're working on, but let me be clear. When you are using raw data, you want to maintain your raw data file in its original form. So if you download raw data or export raw data from something like Qualtrics, you want to leave your original raw data file preserved in its original form. All right. And then when you import it into SPSS and you start labeling your variables or making changes or cleaning your data, you want to save that as a new file. All right, and maybe you'll save that as the one that you will continually work with. I'm not saying save a new file every time, but at least keep your raw data separate and in its original raw form. Maybe you even put that in the file name that this is the raw data, and then you have your file that you're working with. And then once you import it into SPSS and start working with it, you will save it as an SPSS file, which will be the .sav. Okay, so you'll save it as a .sav file. Once you start running statistics and analyses, and even if you want to produce some visualizations like the charts and the graphics, once you've got all of that in the output, you can save the output file. You can save that .spv file so that you can come back to that particular output later. Or if you don't want to save the output, maybe you're just exploring the data, that's fine too. Just know the difference here. Okay, so if you want to create a new file, I told you when I first started using SPSS, I had to do some data entry. And this was because way back in the old days, we were giving surveys on paper, and we had hundreds of surveys from where we had given this questionnaire to a police department. And so we had, I would say, between 300 and 400 surveys, a packet of papers for each of the questionnaires. And then somebody had to put all of that data into a form that it could be analyzed using our computer capabilities. I was the newest one on the team, and the one without any experience doing anything else. And so that task came to me. And so if you are, let's say you have something that is not already digitized, or you want to start over, or, you want to, create data, we'll do that in the data editor. And you can type into it just like you would any other spreadsheet and go, across the rows to enter the data that you want. So I think that is less likely and less common these days. Most of the time, now that we have so many online surveys, you're more likely to be importing data into SPSS. But if you wanted to, type data, enter data into it manually, you could do that too. You would be doing that in the data editor window and saving it as your .sav file. And you want to enter all of your data and save that file. That's your raw data. And then when you begin working with it or working on it, you will save that as a new file. Okay, now this may be a lot of files, more than you're used to working with. Just remember, as a good best practice, yeah, I guess that works. A good best practice would be to save all of your SPSS files together in one folder. So you'll have one folder maybe for your project. Maybe I'll just call my project Campus Survey. I'll have a folder on my device or on my whatever I'm using for memory. I have a folder there called Campus Survey, and in that folder, I might even add another folder called SPSS. And in that folder, I'm going to have my .sav file. I'm going to have my .spv file. I'm going to have my .sps file. So even though they're a little different, you can still manage your data and manage your files appropriately by keeping them together. Okay, so I told you I was going to show you what the data editor window looked like. When you've got that .sav file, this is the one we're using most often. All right, this is our data. Okay, this is us looking at the data. It looks like a spreadsheet, just like I said it would, like any other spreadsheet. And so, when we see the data, the rows for each instance of a response, or each participant will be in a row, and then each variable will be in a column. All right, and then it's got two different views for us. So within the data editor, you can change from the data view. So look at the bottom of the screen, there are two tabs. So the data view, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the data. You can see how each participant has responded by looking at the data view. All right, and we can just scroll across. And then if you were to change from the data view to this other tab, the variable view, it's exactly what it sounds like. You see all of your variables, and it tells you, this is the one I was saying, data about our data. This is telling us about, what type of variable it is, what's the name of the variable, how long is the variable, how many decimals, okay, all of these things we'll get in the variable view. And so I'll go through this kind of quickly, because I want to get to actually looking at SPSS so you can see what I mean. So here is the variable view with, the data view with data in it. So each row here is a different person who has responded, and each column is a different variable. Okay, I'll show you these quickly. I talked a lot about the output already, but here you actually get a look at it. Remember, output is exactly what it sounds like. Whatever statistics you have, you've asked it to perform, they are in the output. It's telling you what it's performed. It's telling you where it came from. So it's reminding you what data set it used. Okay, and this is a separate file, a separate window. I think that'll make more sense when we actually run our own statistics. And then here is a look at the syntax editor. And I'm not going to use the syntax editor today, just in the interest of time, but this gives you a look at what a view of what it looks like. So you would type the commands directly into here, and when you run them, then the output window pops up with doing what you told it to do if you wrote it correctly and there are no errors. And thankfully, it's color coded so that you can really see. It's easier to see visually, thanks to the various colors of what command you're actually performing. I will share these slides with you so that you can access them and read more about the syntax, but I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to, give us plenty of time working in the data. Just a few things that you should know, even though I'm not using it today. Everybody I know who is familiar with SPSS syntax prefers it to the drop-down menus. And I think this is because it is, from what I've been told, it's very easy to read and see, what you performed, if there are any errors, how you can make it better. If there is a mistake, it's very easy to correct by looking at the syntax. And they say it helps them work a lot faster than doing the drop-down menu. So I've probably taken a hybrid approach of using just the tiniest bit of syntax when necessary. But if you are willing to learn this and you lean more towards coding languages and stuff, this will be great for you. Like I mentioned, the color coding helps because you can see what the commands are in blue, and anything that's not recognized is not going to have a color. And then the syntactical errors in red. So very, very visual. And yeah, I'm going to skip this so we can get closer to actually jumping into the data. Okay. I guess, yeah, well, one more slide before we jump in. If you were going to create your own data set, I mentioned that you could, type into it like I had to do for that data entry project where I was, taking all the information from those questionnaires on paper and putting it into the spreadsheet. And so you could just type and go across to enter the data. I think this will make more sense once we get into it. So let's get into it. I am going to show you the process, two processes actually. This will be a 2-for-1. Actually, let me move this so I can see it better. I'm going to first show you what I think will be the most common method, which will be if you were exporting data from something like Qualtrics and importing it into SPSS. So if you signed into Qualtrics, okay, let me try that again. There we go. I'm going to my sample survey. And let's say whatever project you have that you've been working on, you've collected responses already, you've got some sort of data. I can go to data and analysis. And once I'm in data and analysis, look on the right side of the screen next to tools, there is a menu for export and import. And so if you click on that menu, so I've got data in Qualtrics because I created a survey in Qualtrics. I shared that survey. People responded. I was able to collect data. Now I can do basic data analysis in Qualtrics, but I want to use something more powerful and I want to go beyond the basics. So I want to export my data from Qualtrics and import it into SPSS. And so if you go to this export data option, a new window will come up and you see that I can just export it as a regular CSV file, comma separated values file. I can export it as an Excel file. I can export it into other forms, but I want SPSS. And then by default, this box is checked, download all fields, unless you're just doing something exploratory where you only want to see a few variables. go ahead and download all fields. And then, hit download. I've already done this, so I don't need to do it again, but this is how you would get your data into a format for importing into SPSS. And then I promised you a link to my FSU VLab, so let me get that link for you too. And then you can follow along when I'm joining. I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can follow along with how I am starting, or I should say going through this process. So you'll have to sign in to the VLab. So I'm doing that. It's logging me in. If you're not familiar with the VLab, it has several different software tools. I want IBM SPSS statistics, so I will click on that and tell it to open. And then it's opening it in a new window. It usually takes a few seconds to launch. Here, come on. It's coming. It's almost there. It's thinking. And so this will open SPSS. And then from there, I've got to tell it which data I want to work with. And so this is one of the unique things about using the VLab. You actually have to pull your data into the VLab, or in other words, upload it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And this will save you a lot of time and headache, hopefully. Okay. So I mentioned before that when you initialize SPSS, the first screen that pops up is going to ask you, which file you want to open. And it's asking you, do you want to use a file that you've used recently? Do you want to use one of our sample files? What is it that you want to do? And so it's showing me, all of the different sample files. I can scroll through lots of things that I can view and play with. The one I mentioned before, survey sample, that comes from the General Social Survey, so it's a really good file to use. I mean, I could open that. It's older file. I downloaded a more updated one, but if I wanted to use this sample file, I could go ahead and do that here. If I wanted to create my own data set, like the last slide I was showing you, I could tell it, I would go up here and say, new data set. Or if I want to use a file that I've used recently, I could tell it recent files. Now, if you've never used SPSS before and you want to import your data, see this little, let's say a half circle with a hamburger menu at the top. When you hover over it, it changes to a full circle with I guess this is a citric symbol. I don't know what I would call it. But if you click on that, it gives you a few other options, and you can probably guess what they mean, but when you hover over them, it tells you. So full screen is helpful. Sometimes when you use the VLab version, some of the windows within it can get cut off. So it's good to always be using full screen. Download. So when you want to download your data after we've done everything that we're going to do, we've got our output file. We've got our data file that maybe we've made some modifications, changes to. We want to be sure that we download those. So not just saving it, but you want to save it and you want to download it. And that's just a unique thing about using the VLab. The other thing about using the VLab is, remember I said it's like using a computer. Imagine a computer on campus that's already got the software on it. We've got to upload the data we want to tell it. And so you have to use this upload button and tell it, okay, that file I just exported from Qualtrics, you got to upload it into the VLab version of SPSS. So if you were to go to upload, it'll pop up, you find the file wherever it is. For example, this GSS file, the one I said I just downloaded, okay, that's the one I want. Then I would bring it in. Okay, I've already done that, so I don't have to do that again. but just so you know, how do you get your data in SPSS? This is how you do it. Don't let that trip you up. Once you do that once, you should be good to go. I'm going to go to recent files. I'm going to open 2 of them. Well, first, I'll open this one first. So choose the file I want, open, and it is going to open right into the variable view. But I want to go to the data view first. Okay. This is the data from my sample survey in Qualtrics. I can scroll through and see I should have like 80 something responses. Yes, 82 responses, and each row here is a different person who responded to my survey. So because I'm looking at the data view, I can scroll through and see, exactly, and scroll through and see how they respond to my questions. Wonderful. When I go to the variable view, I can see my variables, of course. I'm going to expand this. Not using the mouse, so it's hard to get precise here, but I can expand so I can see the full name, and then some of the things that I want to point out to you about what we're looking at, what we are reading. When you're looking at the variable view, we've got all of these various labels on these columns. And what do those labels mean? If you were ever to forget, I got them here for you in the slides, so that's great, but it's best to just show you. So name is exactly what it sounds like. These are the names that are coming from wherever I pull my data from. So I told you this data came from Qualtrics. Okay, so you see I got Q1 single choice, Q2 multiple choice, Q16. Now I'm just looking at this. I don't remember what Q16 is. All right, so I wanted to show you 2 different files so I could show you if you've ever heard that expression, garbage in, garbage out. So I'm not going to call my data garbage because I'm the one who created the survey, but I could have done this better in Qualtrics by labeling each question. Instead of letting Qualtrics just say question 1, question 2, question 3, if I had given them labels from the start, when I import that data, I would already know the names of these variables. Now, there's something to keep in mind if you're early enough in the process. If you're like me and it's too late, you've already distributed your questionnaire and you've already got the data back and you're importing it, that's okay. We can change the names of these very easily. You double click into the cell and let's see, I don't even remember what this one was. Let's see. This is, what was your first pet's name, I believe. Yeah. What was your first pet's name? And so I can give my variable a new name here. And so when you give it a name, each variable has to have a unique name. So I couldn't just have, Q1, 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 Q1. Give it a unique name. Give it a name that makes sense, something that's intuitive. If my question is, what is your first pet's name? Then it would make sense to name my variable pet's name or first pet's name. All right. You've got to have a unique name for the variable, but it cannot have any spaces in it. Okay. And it should be brief. So I forget how many characters you can use, but it's not going to be unlimited. So I can say pet's name. I know, because I know my data, that this is the only question I asked about a pet's name. And so there's not a first pet's name, second pet's name, third pet's name. There's only this one pet's name question. And so I would name it pet's name. Okay. And so this is the kind of data cleaning you'll have to do if you weren't proactive on the front end to name all of your variables from the start. Okay. So if we stick with this pet's name variable, we can just kind of look across. This next column is type. Basically, it's asking you what type of data, or what level of measurement. So you might remember learning about nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Well, in SPSS, we have a few different types: numeric, comma, dot, string. Most of the variables that we'll work with, that anyone works with, are going to be numeric, which exactly what it sounds like, or string, which means text. And so since I know I'm asking for a name, which is a nominal variable, I know that this is correct to say, okay, it should be string. But let's say it was incorrect. I can just click into the box. There's another menu here, and I can tell it, oh, no, it's not a string variable. It's this other type of variable. But I know because it's nominal and it's only text because they're names, that it's a string variable. Okay. And so the next one, the next column is width. So how many characters that this variable will display in the data editor. It really kind of depends on what the variable is. I just kind of go with what's typically here. The time you would really want to pay attention to this is for your numeric variables, to really think about how many decimal places, or how large you want those numbers to appear. And that brings me right to the next one: decimal, number of digits that appear to the right of the decimal point. Okay. Because this is a string variable, I don't have any decimals and I don't have any numbers, but I don't know. Let's say for this one, I don't remember how many options I gave, but I could change it and say, I don't want any decimals in here. I wanted to round to the nearest whole number. And so I can have decimals set at 0 for the whole data set. Now, when we get to this next one, the label, okay? The label is not the same as the name. So it gives you clues, though. Okay, so the label is just a descriptive definition. Sometimes it's the actual question that was asked, or what you want to display as the name of the variable. So my variable name that I gave it is pet's name, but maybe my label, I can keep the question here that tells me what I ask people. What was your first pet's name? Or I could change this to just be first pet's name. I'm going to leave it as a question for now. And then values. This one doesn't have any values because there weren't options. It was a empty text field for people to write into. But if we look at, let's say, one of these other ones, and I can click on the box here, it tells me, what the values were for that particular question. So this not a great example because this was like yes or no. But if we look at this question, I asked, are you a cat person or a dog person? So here are the values for those labels. If I was entering data myself, creating my own data set, it might take a very long time for every questionnaire for me to type in cat person, dog person for each variable that it's relevant. Instead, I can assign values to the responses, like cat person is 1. So then when I'm entering data, instead of having to type out cat person, I can just put 1. And then I will move on to, the next cell. So here are the values for that particular question. And so you can have the numeric value, which is useful for a lot of reasons, but then a text label assigned to each of those numeric values. So I might be looking, let me see what it says on my data view. Let's see, what is that, number 18? I can be, let's see, if I scroll over, see if I can find it. I think it's this one. Yeah. Right. So if I was entering the data, typing it in myself, I would just have to put, 1, 2, or 3. But then when I run some statistics and get the output, I can tell it to give it the variable name. And so I don't have to go back and always wonder, well, what was 2 again? And what was 3 again? I can just assign labels to these numeric values that'll make it easy to interpret later. Okay, where was pet's name? Here, I'll go back to here. Missing. So I can tell SPSS what to do with any missing data that I might have. I can tell it like, okay, me as the user, I get to define how it works with missing data. So typically it would use a negative 99, 98, or 97 to denote that something is missing. Let me go back to my data view to see if I have any missing variables. No, but where you see the periods are like empty cells, I could tell it instead of putting that there, use 99, 98, 97, or something like that. Not something like that. Typically one of those three. Most often, I think I've used 99. And then the next one, columns. It basically is asking about the width of the column. So I'm in the variable view now, but when I look at the data view, it's saying, what width should that column be? That's not the same as the width that we were looking at earlier about, or it's not about how many characters would be displayed. And then the next one, align. That's exactly what it sounds like. Should it be aligned to the left, to the right? I've never had to change that, but I guess if you wanted to align it in a particular way, you could. And then remember, we were talking about what type of variable this is, and I said it was string because it was nominal. Well, when I get to the measure column, you see in the column, it says nominal. There's a drop down here. I could change it to ordinal, but the software can read, and the software knows that it is text. And so it knows that, it's only going to give me three options: nominal, ordinal, or scale. And if you recall, the variables could be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Interval, ratio are the same to the artificial brain of SPSS, and it's just calling both of those scale. Okay, so interval, ratio, both will be wrapped up into one called scale, and you'll see the little ruler. Think ruler, numbers, typically, not typically, always, for the interval ratio variables, they've got to be numeric, and so it makes sense that this says scale. But otherwise, you can change it from nominal to ordinal. I know this is a nominal variable, so I'm just going to leave that the same. And then that last one, role. What role will this variable play in the analysis? And it's going to give me some options. It's giving me 6 different options. By default, it has them all as input, and that is fine for our uses. What input means is that it's assigning this variable as an independent variable, which is fine for now because we haven't even explored the data yet. And as the researcher, yeah, I know my data and I could change this right away, but all of them are assigned input by default. I could change it if I know. So I know pet's name is not going to be really independent or dependent variable. But maybe if somebody is a cat person or a dog person, maybe that one, maybe that's an independent, maybe it's dependent. If I think it's an independent variable, I'm just going to leave it as input. If I think it is some sort of outcome or dependent variable, I would change it to target. Okay. If it could be either one, I would change it to both. And like in the case of pet's name, I know it's going to be wrong one. Pet's name, I know it's going to be neither, so I could just tell it, none, because I'm not using that one as either type of variable. For now, I'm just going to leave them all there as input. Now, this is a great example to see what the data looks like, and some ugly data, because I haven't taken the time to clean this data up yet. I wanted to show you so that you would know, what. Sometimes, this is how the data looks, so we have to work with it. I want to mention one other thing. Qualtrics exported, like you see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables. So one question, Q9, into 5 different variables. And that's not really how I want to work with it. I do have some things that I can do to remedy this. I could tell SPSS that I want to recode these 5 variables into one variable, one new variable, or if I wanted to, I think I need to open another data set. I want to open the clean, pretty data from the General Social Survey. I showed you the ugly data, the nice, clean data set. So I just opened this General Social Survey. They've been doing this survey since the 1970s. And so it's really a longitudinal survey, but I only downloaded 1 year, so 2018. So we're not going to be doing the longitudinal analysis or anything like that, but just to kind of give you an idea. So when you look at the data views, you just see numeric values in all of the rows and columns. And the General Social Survey is a national survey. It is supposed to be a representative sample of Americans, and it's been stripped of any identifiable information. So if you are getting data from elsewhere, whether that's GSS or ICPSR or some other set, like you're not the one who collected the data, that's okay too. You'll probably get the data in a format like this, where it has been de-identified and hopefully cleaned a little bit or a lot. And then you see here, General Social Survey. I love it, but it is huge, huge, huge. So let's see how many variables they have here. I know my sample survey was pretty short because I designed it and it was only a sample survey and it wasn't intended to take a really long time. But I'm scrolling through here. I'm already at over 400 variables. And so here are the various names, and then, we can see the labels. General Social Survey asks about all sorts of things, but it doesn't ask everything every year. So just because there are over 500 variables here doesn't mean I'm going to have data for each of these. Yeah, I have over 1,000 variables, 1,065 variables. But if I were to scroll through the data view, I would see that some of these are missing because they don't ask every question every year. They couldn't. Very, very few people will be willing to answer 1,000 questions about anything. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. I think we're doing pretty good on time. Oh, I was going to show you about renaming variables or recoding variables. Before I show you that, I should kind of give you an idea. So let's say you have entered all of your data if you're creating a new data set, or you have exported data from somewhere like Qualtrics and imported it into SPSS, or you have downloaded data from a repository or some other. Somehow you got this data and you pulled this data into SPSS, and now you are here. You have taken the time to clean it up a bit. You have assigned names that make sense to all of your variables. The labels make sense. The values, time values, they're there. All right. So now we're ready to analyze data, or at least explore the data to see what we are going to. So this is the part where I was saying that it's really easy. Drop down, point and click, tell it what you want to do. If you look up at the top, right here in the middle, I've got a menu option that says analyze. Well, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to analyze the data. So if I click on analyze, another menu pops up, and I've got all of these options. Remember, we are just getting into this data. We're new. We're exploring this. So I'm going to start with descriptive statistics. And they do have an option to explore, but I know enough about statistics to know that I kind of want to get an idea of who has been responding to my survey. And so I want to get some descriptive statistics on some demographic variables and really just kind of get a picture of what my sample looks like. And so when I go to analyze and then I go to descriptive statistics, this dialog box pops up. Wait, did I go to descriptive statistics? I think I went to frequencies. Analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. The frequencies dialog box pops up. And then here are all of my variables, all 1,065 variables here. I have to choose which ones I want it to perform the analysis or analyses on by moving them over into this variable box. So you see, because this data set is huge, there are thousands of variables, and I want to do like age, race, sex, but I had to scroll through 1,065 variables to find it. I don't want to do that because I'm looking at the labels here. If you right click into this box, you can change it to display variable names. And if you did a good job renaming or naming your variables, this becomes a lot simpler because now they're in alphabetical order too. So I know I want age, and so I can click on age and click to move it over to the variable box to be analyzed. And what did I say? Race and sex. Let's see, QRS. I got to go back up for R. And it's a lot easier than trying to read through 1,065 questions. Maybe not. Yeah, here. Race and sex. Where is sex? Sex has got to be with the S. I'm looking for sex. There it is. And income. Let's say income. I used to work with GSS data a lot. I haven't played with it in a while, so I'm not as familiar with the variables, but I know these variables are in here. So let's go ahead and look at these. So I'm just trying to get an idea of my sample. So I've got the variables that I want. I can go to this first option to tell it what statistics I want. And so thinking about, what kind of what kind of statistics I need to perform to see what is typical of my sample. I want, measures of central tendency. I want mean, median, mode. Some is not really going to be relevant here for these demographics. Maybe I want the standard deviation. I'm thinking range. Let's have some minimum, maximum too. So I've got 4 different variables and 4 different types of variables where we know the age variable, because people are inputting their numeric age, that's going to be a scale variable. It makes sense for me to get the mean and median, mode, really all of these, the minimum, the maximum, all of that. But for something like race, the nominal variable, these measures aren't going to make sense. But guess what? SPSS will perform them anyway. All right. So, you have to know your data, but you also have to know basics of data and statistics to know which test you can perform on which data. So I'm asking for all of these things because I know I've got a mix. And so we'll see. And so we'll hit continue. And then now that I know what I want to do, I'm not ready for any charts or anything yet. I'm just exploring. So then I can hit OK. Now a new window has popped up. We finally got this output window, the one that I've been telling you about for the last hour. Now we've got our output. And just like I told you, it would do exactly what we said. It is going to display the output. It's showing us exactly what we asked it to do. And so it always starts out with a summary of what it performed. And then as you run more and more analyses, you'll see that this menu, this navigation pane on the side of the screen will start to fill up. But if you can pay attention to what's here, because maybe I want to easily scroll back to the frequencies. And when I did this, if I want to just jump to race, I can use that navigation pane to just jump down. But they always start with like a summary of what it performed. And so there's the box there. I'm going to come back to that. So I can start looking. I asked it to tell me about age. So what I'm looking at, oh, wow, this is a lot. Okay. I'm looking at the ages of all the people that responded. The youngest person was 18 because this is a survey for adults, so there shouldn't be anybody under 18. This is a good way to kind of like check your data, especially if you're doing manual entry. If if I did this, if I performed this not a test, but if I ran this frequency, this descriptive statistics, and it was showing me that the youngest person was age 11, then I know I've made a mistake somewhere because nobody age 11 took my survey. And so that's, a kind of way that I know I can double check to be sure that I'm entering data correctly. Okay, so we see all of these ages of people that responded. What am I looking at here? I've got the frequency, that is how frequent this particular response was given. So how many 18-year-olds, actually I should scroll back, how many people, period? For the age question, 2,341 respondents. 7 people skipped this question or didn't answer this question. So I've got 7 missing points. And then I asked it for the mean, and the mean, the mean is one type of average. It's telling me that the average age of the people responding to my survey was 48.97, so about 49 years old. The median, the midpoint, age 48. The mode, which age appeared most frequently, age 34. Standard deviation, range, minimum, maximum. All right, standard deviation, hopefully you understand standard deviation. I don't have to explain that too much because I have a hard time explaining it without showing you a bell curve. But how much did each, on average, how much did each point deviate from the mean? And then the range and from the minimum, 18, to the maximum, 89. What is the range of values? Well, from 18 to 89, the range is 71. So I know that the youngest person was 18 and the oldest person to respond was 89. Okay, so it makes sense for age because age is at the scale level because it's a ratio variable. But for race and sex, all of those things don't make sense. Well, let me just show you. I had to scroll through all of these ages, and maybe there are some that were skipped, but with over 2,000 respondents, I probably have every age between 18 and, what was the oldest one? 89. While we're looking at this, let me just show you. I mentioned frequency. How many times did 18 appear in our sample? All right, it gives me the number, so 22 times, but then it also gives me the percentage. So 18-year-olds were less than 1% of my sample. Valid percent is taking into account, missing data or not, And then cumulative percent. It doesn't make sense looking at this first row, but let's look at the second row. 19-year-olds. How many 19-year-olds are in my sample? There's 26 of them, okay? What percentage does this represent of my entire sample? 19-year-olds made up 1.1%. Now, if I skip over to the cumulative percent, it is cumulative as in it's adding up along the way. And so what it's telling me is for this first row, 0.9, that's all I've got. But when I get to this one, 2.1, that's adding up everything that came before it. So that's the 0.9 plus the 1.1 for a total of 2.1. And it must be rounding because that's not exact. So you'll see the cumulative percentage increasing as you go down until you get to the 89-year-olds, and you see it was 89 or older, 100%. So maybe I want to know how many people responded or what percentage of my sample was under age 21. I would go to 21 and just jump to the cumulative percent. And I could say 3.8% of my sample were 21 or younger, or 18 to 21, because we know they weren't younger than 18. So that's one of the cool things about cumulative percent. And one more thing I'll tell you about looking at a scale variable like this. Remember my range here was it 71? That means I've got 71 lines on this table to show everyone from 18 to 89, well, almost 71, if there are no gaps. What if I don't want to report age this way? Maybe I want to group the 18 to 25 together, and then 26 to 35, and 36 to 45. If I wanted to group those together, I could do that. I would have to recode my variables, and what I would tell it to do, and I'm just going to show you this because this is a common transformation. So transform, recode into different variables. You don't want to recode into the same variables because that's going to write over the variables you have. When you recode into different variables, then I have to choose the variable. Let me go back to variable names and tell it the variable I want is age. Where are you, age? There. Okay. And then it's asking me to name my new variable, and I'm going to say, oops, capital letters, age groups. Well, I can't spell today, groups. And then I'm going to label that age. I don't know how to explain it other than age groups. Okay. And so I've got that, and then I'm going to tell it what the values are. And so I can say for my first value, I'm thinking, let's go with range. So I want everyone 18, what did I say? 18 to 25. All right. I want them to be group 1. And then I'll add them here. And then I'll do the same thing. I can go 26 to, I think I said 45. And I want them in group 2. And so on and so on. Now, if I wanted everybody, if I just wanted 2 groups, everybody under age 50 and everybody over age 50, then I could use these other range options, the lowest value through value 50. And then I would put that as group 1. And then the other one, I would put 51 through whatever the highest value is. I put that in group 2. All right, so that's how I can group them together. And actually, let me just continue with this so I can show you what it is. This next one will be 46 through 55, and I want that value 3. I'm not going to do all of them. 56 through 65. I'm interested in the age 65, because we know that's associated with a few things in our society, like retirement age or retirement benefits. So maybe that's all I'm interested in now. And then I would say for everybody else, that would be 66 to whatever the highest value is. Put them in the last group for group 5. Put that here. Continue. I'm going to change this. So I want age recoded into a new variable called age groups according to the new values I just assigned. And then I'll hit OK. And then let's just say we're going to analyze that. Analyze descriptive statistics. I want those same frequencies. I don't need any of these anymore because I already ran that data. But I do want my new age groups. Here we go. Age. Oh, I forgot. When you create a new variable, it goes to the end. There. Age groups. And everything I checked last time is still checked. So I'm going to hit OK. And each new analysis or statistics you perform get added to the navigation pane. So now you see I've run another set of frequencies, but just on this variable, and I can click on it in the navigation pane and jump right to it. And then you'll see exactly what I said. Now, I could have labeled these. I could have fully labeled them, and then it would show up here 18 to 25. Well, how many people are in the 18 and 25 group? 240, and that represents 10.2% of my sample. And then this group, 507, I believe that was 66 and older. 507 people of 2,000 something, 2,348 are over age 65. And that lets me know that 21.6% of my sample was age 65 or older. I would say just over 1/5 of my sample was over age 65. So recoding variables is a common thing that you would do. I just wanted to show you that quickly. Let me jump back to my age table, the original one. I just wanted to show you that we've got all these individual ages. And I said the oldest person was 89, but when the GSS people cleaned up the data, they already put everybody 89 or older, together in one group. So that's why this group is so large. But I don't know, there could have been, some 90, 99-year-olds, 120-year-olds who took the survey. We don't know because the data we got, they were all grouped together. So that's a few common things you might do with scale. When we get to the next one, I asked it to give me the descriptive statistics for race. And now that I'm looking at it, I see that they only measured white, Black, or other, which is probably not how I would have measured race, but this is not my data. That's one of the drawbacks of when you don't collect your own data. You just got to use the data that the original researcher collected. And so based on that, I can start summarizing or describing my sample. So 1,693 of the 2,348 respondents identified as white. And this is 72% of my sample. So I would say 72% of respondents were white, 16.4% of respondents were Black, 11.5%, I'll probably just round it to 12%, identified as other. And then the same thing with sex, they only measured male and female. And so I would say 45%. Yeah, if you do the rounding, it comes out to about 45 and 55%. 45% of respondents were male and 55% of respondents were female. And then income. They've already got some categories here, which is great because that means I don't have to recode these variables. I mean, I guess I could recode them if I wanted to. Like if I wanted everybody who makes less than $6,000 to be in one group, I could recode and say that. But for now, I'm fine with these categories. One thing I should mention is that if you get data from somewhere else, like data you did not collect, like this GSS data, you also should get a code book. And the code book explains exactly what that variable is. Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking these are some really low numbers for income, because the highest group is 25,000. And so I'm wondering how they are measuring income. I don't think this is annual income, total family income. I would have to figure out exactly what they measured or what they asked about that question to get this data. So just some things to be aware of. Now I want to go back to my data view and explore. Actually, I could find that whatever, I'll have to scroll way up. I had to figure out what income variable I was looking at because I saw a few for income, but I don't know where. Okay, so the variable I was looking at, this one, total family income, does it say anything else? No, so it still doesn't tell me. I would need to check the code book. But while we're here, we can also see that this is how they coded the missing data. Remember I said they might use a variety of numbers, 99, 98, 97. We can see for each of these how they coded missing data. Like this one, they use 0, 98, and 99. Many of these variables use 0. So when I go to the data view and look where the zeros are, I know the zeros are missing data. The zeros aren't representing something else, unless it's something like, well, let me see, something like, no, even income has a 0. So 0 for missing data. There is an income question that doesn't have a 0, so 0 could be a legitimate answer to the question. All right, those are, oh my gosh, I just saw the time. You can go ahead and start asking questions, or if you got questions, I don't see any questions in the chat, but if you want to jump in and ask a question, now would be a great time to do it. And if you don't have a question, then I got more stuff that I can show you. I already talked about changing variables. I think about, yeah, I did talk about changing the values from the variable view. We talked about missing values. I guess we should talk about, well, I'll wait and talk about saving. I showed you the drop-down menus. I showed you how to start such an analysis. What else? So what we just did, we ran some very basic descriptive statistics just to kind of get an idea of our sample. Remember, this is just an introductory workshop to, get you started, but there's a lot more that you could do. Typically for univariate analyses, we'll have those descriptive statistics and more. Well, those are more like frequencies, but adding the descriptive statistics like the chi-square and some of the others. We can compare means. We can get more descriptive statistics from that compare means menu. So we can summarize and compare. A big one is correlation. So if you want to see the strength and the direction of relationships, I think I'll have time to give you an example of that. I'm going to show you that one because that's a very common thing to statistic to perform. And we can do Pearson's R, and we can do Spearman's role, and we'll look at that in just a moment. And then multiple regression, if you want to explore relationships between variables and you're thinking about how to predict, you're thinking about prediction and you want to use multiple regression, SPSS does all of that. So let me see. I already talked about transforming variables, so I'm just going to skip that. And I think we can go ahead and go back to the data. I'll do that. And then I'll show you, what did I just say? Correlation? Yes. And then a few of the other statistics. I'm going to find that screen again. There it is. Okay. So back in my variable view, let me go back. I'm going to analyze pretty much everything, every test that you want to perform or every statistic you want to explore, you'll come up with it in this analyze menu. The transform is exactly what it sounds like. You got to transform some things. If you've got a large data set like this, we talked about, what to do with the missing values. You can replace them all at once rather than trying to go through each row to do that. Recoding different variables, you'll use that one a lot. What else? Get that off my screen. We didn't really talk about visualizations, but we've got this graphs menu where you can, explore what kind of visualizations. I never really liked the visualizations in SPSS, so I don't do them often, but let's just, explore for a moment. If I want a let's say simple bar chart. I'm trying to decide if I want the summaries. Let's try summaries of different variables. And I'm going to do this for my new variable that I know is all the way at the end. So I know I want my bars to represent the different age groups. Actually, it's going to do the mean of the different age groups. And this was what I was saying about being sure you're full screen because now I can't see the bottom of my box. Okay. See if I can make it a little smaller. No. We'll go through the titles and options, and then I could tab through to what I think would be options. Yeah, it's telling me it's excluding cases list-wise. That's about excluding the ones that are missing. Titles I won't worry about now, even though I know I didn't put any titles on it. And now if I can only get to see what happens. No, that didn't work. One more time. So when you use the VLab, because things at the bottom of the screen, I can't manipulate the windows like I would if I was on desktop. But other than that issue, typically it never happened with me. I think I hit cancel. If I do this one more time, try a different summary. No, not going to do that. Because I hit the cancel button, I know I was right there before the OK button. And what I was doing, once I added the variable that I wanted, I was pressing the tab key to get it to go to the different areas of the screen. And now I think this is okay. No, still didn't do it. So we'll skip that one. I'm going to go back to analyze because I promised you correlations and we're running out of time. So I want, let's say, bivariate. But one of the other things that you might want to do before you get to this point, frequencies, popular, descriptors, popular, crosstabs. Your cross tabulations also a popular test to perform. So for bivariate, I could tell it I want what is the relationship between, I don't know, GSS has so many variables. So I'm going to right click here and change the variable names. And then since we've been talking a lot about age, let me find, I don't want that age one. That's because there's too many ages. I want, oh, I just saw religion. Let's do religion. So I can get back to it. Religion. I don't think it's this one. I'm going to right click just to go back to variable labels to be sure. Religious preference or the religion that someone was raised in. Okay. A religion that the respondent was raised in. So I want that one. And general social survey asks a lot of like opinion questions. The one I have used it the most for is exploring attitudes about marijuana. And so I'm going to see if, let's see if those are in here. And we can look at religion and attitudes toward marijuana if it's in here. No, it might have a different label name. I'm going to go back to my labels. And I know this first one is an opinion question. I can't read the full thing. Oh, okay. So it's a question about abortion. So I will add that one on here. I can go to my options and tell it, yeah, in addition to the correlation, I want the means and the standard deviations too, and hit continue. It's I'm giving me Pearson's R, but based on the type and type of variable, the level of measurement, I would know, okay, if I should be using Pearson's R, Kendall's Tau, or Spearman's Rho. For the sake of time, because I only have like 1 minute, I'm just going to roll with Pearson's. Even though I need a, I think I need a numeric variable, but I'm just going to hit OK. We'll see what happens. We're just playing around, so it's OK. And then I can interpret the output. I'm looking at the significance, negative 0.35. That's a very weak correlation. Negative and weak. So it's not really telling me anything, but I just wanted to demonstrate what the test results would look like. We are just about out of time, so we're pretty much out of time. So there's one last thing that I want to tell you is about saving your data. And so I tried to stress this at the beginning, but I'm going to stress this again because we've got all of these windows. I didn't use the syntax window, so we only have 2 windows. Remember, there can be 3 types of SPSS windows. And so right now we're looking at the output. I was just exploring today. Maybe I don't want to save any of these things. Maybe I like what some of these frequency tables I got. I don't want to have to keep running these frequencies every time. So I will save these. I can hit save. I can tell it what to save it as, give it a good title that you know where it is and where to find it. And then I would put these, I've been pulling things from this file under the desktop. Because remember, we're in the VLab. This is not on my personal computer. And so I would put that, let's go ahead and save that here. So you have to save the output, but I created a new variable too. So I want to save my new variable. So remember, keep your raw data pure and separate. So you don't want to save over your raw data once you start manipulating it. Keep that the same. And then I'm not just going to hit the save button because it's already a file. I'm going to go to save as and tell it this. So this is my raw data file. I don't want to save it as that. I want to save it as this GSS 2018 with age groups. And then I'm going to save it. Okay, so that's my .sav file. You see the name reflected here. So I've got my output. That's the .spv. I just saved it as output 1. My data file .sav. I'm saving that. We didn't really do anything with my other sample survey, so I don't even need to look at this now. Okay, no, I don't want to save that one. But you're not done yet. You've saved your data. You need to go back. When you're using the VLab, you've got to do this extra step to go back to this little tab thing right in the middle and click on it. So before we uploaded data to import it into SPSS, now we need to download the data to export. And so I have to go in and find it and tell it where I saved this data to download. I think it was somewhere on the desktop. Yep, desktop. And output 1, there it is. And now we'll go from there. Let's see. So now it's downloading it to my device. So remember, it's like I'm using a computer somewhere on campus. I want to download it so I have my own output. Well, everything we've done so far has been saving it on that campus computer. Download it so you have it on your own device or your own memory device or wherever. So be sure you can find your files. All right, 3 minutes overtime. Are there any final questions? Yes, go Rattlers too. Go Noles and go Rattlers. All right, if you do have any questions, this was only meant to be an introduction, but the great thing is that there are lots of resources that can help you with SPSS. I'm one of the resources, so of course I can help you. I'll put my my email address in the chat if you need it. The slides will be sent out and the slides have my email address, so you're welcome to reach out to me. This is one of the things that I do is to help students, faculty, staff, whoever with their research projects. So even if you want to kind of talk through whatever stage of your research you're in, I'm here for that too. And then you do have access to LinkedIn Learning. You'll be able to find some SPSS videos on there. And then my slides that I'm sending you, I've got links to other tutorials and resources for you. So there will be no excuse not to take the introductory info that we started with today and run with it later. You've got plenty of resources for SPSS. That's one of the great things about using popular software. All right, so if there are no questions, then I will wrap it up.